Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. With that being said, guys, on to the show. Aaron Hamlin here on The Brian Nichols Show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Aaron, it's been a while since we last had you on. Center for Election Science. You guys, I'm sure it's election season here. We're recording August 2020, and I'm guessing you guys are getting busy because right now, obviously, people are starting to, number one, focus on election season. So people are starting to get more not only involved, but they're starting to do some research. And I'm sure with that, a lot of people have been starting to say, this election system we have in America, why is it only we have, 2 flavors of ice cream? Why do we only have chocolate and vanilla? And I bet a lot of people are starting to look and see, maybe it's because our electoral system is a little messed up. So with that being said, Aaron, I think it'd be a great chance right now to reintroduce yourself to the audience and show the value of what you guys are doing at the Center for Election Science. So with that being said, Aaron Hamlin, welcome back. And let's do a quick recap. Center for Election Science, what do you guys focus on? And then also do a quick overview of also your kind of a political background, what got you so involved in focusing on election systems of all things.
Sure. The Center for Election Science at electionscience.org, what we do is we empower voters with better voting methods to strengthen their democracy, that they have a voice so they can finally be heard. As the executive director, I founded the organization and really excited to move forward in terms of the conversation here. So
let me ask you this. We have right now in 2020, you have Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and then you have this one lady out there named, she's the bat lady, Jo Jorgensen, right? She's been on the show. She got bit by a bat. Everybody was like, oh, she's got rabies. No, Jo Jorgensen's great. We did a Michael Scott fund run, so we're good to go. She's good to go. But people are starting to actually open their ears, open their eyes, and open their hearts to considering voting for, one candidate named Jo Jorgensen. And sadly, though, I still hear a lot of folks out there say, you're wasting your vote. You're just wasting your vote. Let's kind of start here, right? I think to set the stage, let's at least, look at some of these common myths. And I think the most common myth that we do here is the wasting the vote. So could you quickly just address that and then also discuss maybe a little bit of how we got to the mindset that a vote for any third party candidate is a wasted vote?
Sure. So under our current system, we are forced to choose just one candidate, and the candidate with the most votes wins. And that is unfortunate, to say the least, because what that means is that a lot of people feel that if they aren't able to vote for the winner, that they've thrown their vote away. And if the candidate that you really like isn't likely to win, or they seem like they are newer, or they don't have the same kind of viability, for a lot of people, that puts them in a case where they struggle on whether to vote for that candidate because they feel like they're not having a say in the outcome. And so even if that candidate is your favorite candidate, a lot of people feel pressured not to support that candidate because they don't want to throw away their vote and not have a say among the front runners.
And it's sad, right? Because I think right now people, they really do want a different choice. And it's weird to see you still have this kind of mentality of shaming other people. It's funny because I'll see a lot of people on the left are like, do not meddle in elections unless I'm shaming you and calling you a Russian bot, telling you not to mess in an election. But right now with Jo Jorgensen, she's on the ballot in all 50 states, and there really is an alternative, right? To what is considered to be, the Trump, Biden, Republican, Democrat duopoly. So let's kind of dig into this. How much of a chance, let's just, all the cards on the table, in our current voting system, does someone like Jo Jorgensen have, number one? And number two, based on that, what could we do to make it better in the future by changing the voting system?
So right now, I would say horrendous chance. The way you would think about this technically is imagine kind of the proportion of the time that her vote would surpass the plurality electoral votes over every other candidate. And so that kind of tail of the distribution where we see the number of times where she hits that threshold is vanishingly small. So it's not gonna happen. So that's the current scenario under our current system.
Yeah, and that's with the basically the pick one voting system we currently have, where basically you pick the worst of, I guess, the best of the worst. Is that fair to say?
We're really picking at words to try to. Yeah, it's a terrible situation, regardless of how you frame it. It's a terrible situation.
It is. So I guess how do we make it better? So I obviously, elephant in the room. You at the Center for Election Science, you've been doing a lot of great work in bringing forward different ideas of voting systems. And when you were last in the show, you helped me in terms of clarifying between ranked choice voting and board account voting, which Aaron, I still use that to this day. And we discussed approval voting. So can we maybe set some of the I guess those different types of voting systems, kind of explain what each of those mean, and I guess what you would say is the best means going forward to actually help bring in more voices to the electoral system?
Sure. So some of the popular options that are out there in terms of alternatives, and there are a number of them. So there is an entire class of voting methods that involve ranking. Board account, as we mentioned last time on the show, is one of them. When you rank the candidates and those rankings translate to score values and you add up the score values.
I like that one. That's my favorite one, by the way.
So there's board account. That's board account. Another one which is more common in the U.S. in terms of reform, is called instant runoff voting. It's a ranking method. It's commonly popularized under the name ranked choice voting, which is a little confusing because there are a whole bunch of ranking methods.
Right.
So the way that one works is you rank all your candidates. If a candidate has more than 50% of the first choice votes, that candidate wins. If not, which is very common when you have a crowded field, then the candidate with the fewest first choice votes is eliminated. You look at their next choice preference. The votes transfer over to their next choice preference. They're now treated as a first choice preference. And now you ask yourself again, okay, now that we've tallied up these ballots, does anyone have more than half of the first choice preferences out of the remaining ballots? Because some of them can be exhausted. If the answer is yes, then you have a winner. If not, you keep going through that loop through multiple rounds until you have someone that passes that threshold. That's instant runoff voting, also known as ranked choice voting.
And it just sounds messy, honestly. I mean, it just, if I was an average voter and I heard that, I would on election night be staring at my TV screen, just completely, just drool. Cause you're like, what does this mean? Because before you go to approval voting, I think part of the problem is that a lot of Americans look at politics as like this sport, really. And with it, there's a team that wins and a team that loses. So it's easy with just a, pick one voting situation to have a winner and everybody else is the losers. And I think that maybe is also the mentality of people just wanting some type of finality at the end of election night. Like we know who the president's going to be. Whereas, if you have to go through multiple rounds of, pulling out, first place candidates and going multiple rounds, I could see oh my God, this is going to take forever. And I mean, let's look back to 2000, right? We had, how long was it? Of a couple of months after the election, and we didn't really know if it was going to be Bush or Gore. And the country was kind of in a weird limbo for a little bit, what's going to happen? And it was definitely uncomfortable for, the country. I'm sure it was uncomfortable in DC. So, obviously it has its flaws, and it's not a perfect system by any means, and we discussed that in the show before, the flaws to it. But let's go to approval voting. This is something that you've been promoting a lot over at the Center for Election Science, and you've been working with some localities to get it enacted. So let's discuss approval voting again, kind of set the foundation of what it entails, but also once we get past that, maybe we can go into discussing some of the actual case studies you have, right? I know we discussed it last time on the show, but just to show this stuff isn't just, stuff you're talking about pie in the sky. You're doing this kind of stuff, Aaron. So with that, approval voting, set the floor for us. Hey folks, really quick, if you're looking for someone to amplify your message where both voters and customers spend their time, look no further. Right Strategies specializes in the unique challenges of both running political campaigns as well as small businesses in the digital landscape. With a proven track record of helping clients win elections and grow their businesses through smart, strategic digital marketing, Right Strategies is the perfect partner to help you reach your goals. Their team of experts will help you save time and money while helping amplify your message to help you win your elections and help win in the marketplace. With SMS texting from Right Strategies, you'll receive an efficient, affordable, and smart way to focus your marketing budget. By helping you reach thousands of voters and customers, Right Strategies will help you make a powerful impact on the outcome of your elections and your business growth. From social media management to expert graphic design work to marketing your product or campaign, or heck, even building your brand awareness, Right Strategies can put together a plan that makes sense for your goals and do so within your budget. Want to learn more about how Right Strategies can help you win your elections and also help grow your business? Head to briannicholsshow.com/RS to get your free campaign or marketing plan report card. And of course, be sure to let Morgan and the Right Strategies team know that I sent you. Again, that's briannicholsshow.com/RS. Amplifying your message where voters and customers spend their time. briannicholsshow.com/RS. And now, back to the show.
Sure. With approval voting, you can pick as many candidates as you want. So normally you're forced to just pick one. If you pick more than one, they throw your ballot out. Not the case with approval voting. If there are 10 candidates on your ballot and you like, say, 4 of them or 3 of them, or how many of them that you like that you'd like to see elected, you can pick as many as you want. And the candidate with the most votes wins. So that's like in a nutshell what approval voting is. And it uses the same type of ballot. So you don't have any kind of complexity with the ballot, where it's like a ranking method, for instance, like you've got this grid of the number of candidates, and then like on like another axis, you have all these rankings. You don't have any of that with approval voting. You just have the bubbles next to the candidate, and you bubble in as many as you want, kind of like a thumbs up or a thumbs down for each individual candidate.
So it eliminates really the confusion of having to preference anybody. It just really is, do you like this person? So I personally liked the border count mentality more so because I would like people to go into the ballot box more educated, like to actually have to say like, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, which I think that'd be better for America if you could say, objectively speaking, like I know that Trump and Biden are both terrible. I think Joe Jorgensen would be the best candidate, and you can say that in your preference, but then say, because I don't want the world to go one way or the other, whatever the argument that they're going to use today, you can either rationalize in your brain putting Trump or Biden number 2 to say you're still doing your part for your side. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be a great alternative, right? But then to your point, approval voting, it brings it down much more to like an easier to actually implement level. Is that fair to say?
Approval voting is super easy to implement. It's also free, which is not something that can be said for alternative options like instant runoff voting or ranked choice voting, which require special voting machines and often have recurring costs within those elections as well. And like you mentioned before, you've got delay issues. There's potential for voter confusion, particularly on the back end. The ballot itself is more complicated. So you've got all those kinds of issues. And really, a number of those issues can come with practically any ranking method. It's just that particular method is what's being pushed right now in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. So let's dig into some case studies here, right? So Fargo, North Dakota, discuss. You had some good success there, right?
Yeah, and this is kind of an interesting implementation. So a lot of times as we're discussing this now, we're talking about single winner approval voting. With Fargo, they had a 2-seat commissioner race. And typically when you have multiple seats, you use a different kind of class of voting methods. But with this, since there were only 2, and also we were working within the confines of what was politically possible in Fargo with looking at their commission, we still use this for the 2-seat election. Now, the next election in 2022, will use a single winner election with approval voting for their mayoral seat. But for going back to here with their commission, they had a 7-person race for their commission. And normally the people in their commission seat, in the commission race, they would win with something like 40% if they're lucky in terms of percentage of the ballots that they were voted in on. But with approval voting this time around, the 2 people who were elected, both of them were elected with over 50% approval. Oh, and wow. On top of that, it seems to have addressed the vote splitting issue. So there were a number of people in this particular election, a little bit more center left, where otherwise it looks like they would have split their vote. But here, under approval voting, their vote was not divided. And like here, I'm talking about it within the center left, but like that changes depending on where you are. If it was another geography or locality, it could have easily been the center right or whatever have you splitting their vote. Mm-hmm. So what we're really worried, what we really are concerned with is making sure that the electorate themselves, wherever they are, whatever kind of political ideology or hopes and dreams that they have, that they don't have to worry about splitting their vote, and they are able to get the winners that represent them.
I would imagine that one of the hardest parts has got to be like the education aspect, right? Because I mean, let's be real. The most really any American citizen gets to learn about their education, learns about civics is in their education system. There's their public schooling system. So unfortunately, I would be a little nervous to say that you implement a brand new type of voting and everybody's going to be ready to rock and roll. So how do you go about in helping get people prepared, both in terms of, the citizenry, in terms of knowing what to do and how to actually, do an approval voting, but also like my dad's an elections commissioner, my home county up in northern New York. And like, they have elections inspectors all across the county. They have to sit there every single election with people. And I'm sure the first election, it's going to be, a lot of questions. So how do you address those questions when it's go time and people are actually going out and casting those ballots?
Absolutely. So we had to be proactive, and it wasn't, to be clear, it wasn't just us here. This was the result of a grassroots effort. So we had a number of people local to the community that were on the ground that really were offering this as a solution to their community. And they wanted it to be a success, and they wanted to make sure that everyone understood it. They started off on a really positive foot by the voting method that they chose, because other alternatives are much more complicated than this. But they pushed for an education campaign. They did a lot of media outreach, making sure that this is something that people were aware of. We also helped them with providing education materials. We provided them a grant recently in order to make sure that they were able to educate the voters themselves, make sure that they understood how the ballots worked. And in addition to that, we did a poll to see what kind of impact it had in terms of how people accepted approval voting. And the results of that poll indicated that 71% of people said that approval voting was easy, which is not surprising because it is easy. 62% said that overall they liked approval voting, and another 62% said that they were comfortable with approval voting. So it looks like, given the data that we got back, that the education campaign was successful.
Well, it's a plus. And that means that I would say that proves it could be scalable, right? So let's scale it up. Let's say, and I would love my awesome researcher and behind the scenes extraordinaire Corey. He brought this up in a question, and I think it actually raises a lot of curious like hypotheticals. Is, let's say we were able to get approval voting scaled up on a national level, right? Would you envision seeing like approval voting actually take over the existing electoral system, being that of like the electoral college, and more so have it based on a national popular approval voting type of mentality? Or would it be more so of that it would be each individual state and then it would go to electoral college? How would that all work out?
You could technically do it either way. So sidestepping the electoral college, you can do that a couple ways. One is through a constitutional amendment, which is very challenging. Another is using an interstate compact, which is something that the National Popular Vote Plan wants to do. Their approval voting is actually compatible with that in a way that other alternative voting methods aren't. So it does have an advantage if you want to sidestep the electoral college by using the National Popular Vote Plan. But also, if you don't want to sidestep the electoral college and you just want to say, hey, states have the ability to allocate their votes however they want, but maybe I don't know about this state agreement, you can still have it so that the state themselves uses approval voting to decide how they allocate their individual electoral votes. And now they do it in a winner take all sense. So for instance, like let's say if New York passed approval voting at the statewide level, well, then you're looking at federal offices too. So approval voting would be used to vote on Senate seats, U.S. House seats, and you could use it to vote on the presidential election as well.
Interesting. So I guess, what would your thought be? So obviously, when you had the Electoral College, and we're digging some history here, right? Electoral College itself was a compromise, and the compromise was to basically give, well, it was part of when you had the Senate and the House, right? To give the equal representation, essentially, for the states that had, larger populations versus those who did not have as large populations. So you look at with today, the Electoral College, and a lot of folks on the right are especially on the right, are in favor of Electoral College, explicitly for the fact that it does give the flyover states, especially, a voice. So I would hear probably one of the first objections would be, well, Aaron, like, what are we doing here? Like, you're going to end up having all these people that are, in these flyover states that are now going to be, dictated by the coasts. How do we deal with that?
So here, to be clear, what I'm saying is that so approval voting works with the National Popular Vote Plan. So you can do that if you want to. You don't have to do that. I'm just saying it's compatible with that approach. And it's compatible with a lot of things just because it's such an easy method. If you want to do it by a state approach and have the states allocate their electoral votes just how they normally do, but use approval voting instead of the choose one voting method now,
right,
you can do that too within the context of the Electoral College.
And see, I got to play devil's advocate, right? Because these are the questions that I know people are going to see on Facebook. They're going to say, "Hey, we should try approval voting," and then you're going to have Boomer Bob come in, and he's going to be like, "Well, what about the flyover states?" And then it's going to be a whole conversation. Well, not even going to be a conversation. It's just going to be all caps screaming by Boomer Bob, and it's not going to be productive. So I think it'd be great just to have kind of those objections ready to be overcome. My day job's in sales, so like everything in my head is always about how you're going to be able to best overcome an objection. So in this case, I would say probably that would be one of the main objections. The other objection I would hear, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, is that it's not practical. Why do you think we can do this? Why you think, number one, that we can get anybody to agree on a president, let alone changing the way we vote entirely? What's the way you would overcome that? In the world of wine, there are so many choices, and that's why Blood of Tyrants Wine has tyrants losing their heads. Whether you're looking for a new go-to at home or want to impress your friends at a party, Blood of Tyrants Wine has you covered. And if you're trying to get rid of some pesky tyrants in your life, well, we've got that covered too. Head to BrianNicholsShow.com/wine and get $5 off your order. One more time, BrianNicholsShow.com/wine. Free men don't ask permission, so take a sip. You'll be glad you did.
Well, so far, for example, in the city of Fargo, North Dakota, it passed by 63.5%. In St. Louis, where we're running another campaign now with the community there, it's looking extremely good in our preliminary polls. So long as we're able to run a competent campaign and get the word out, it looks likely that that'll pass. But there's still a lot of work to do there, but it looks very, very promising. Mainly whenever we want to be efficient with our efforts and with the donations that we get as well, because we're a nonprofit. And so one of the ways that we calculate our actions is that we do polling ahead of time. And every time we do that polling, what we see is that once people hear about approval voting, they tend to like it. Not to say that everybody likes it, but by far people like it more than they don't like it once they hear about it. So it's really just a matter of learning about it as an option, because at the end of the day, what they're comparing it to is this terrible, terrible choose one system that they have now, where they can't express their opinions honestly, where they feel like they are throwing away their vote, where they can't support third parties. And approval voting gives them the ability to address vote splitting issues, being able to support the candidate that they really like. And they get to do that in a way that is easy. It's not hard to implement it. It's free to implement. It works in even the dumbest of voting machines. And so they're getting all these aspects of voting and making sure that their voice is heard that they want. And it's not costing them an arm and a leg in both cost, and it's not costing them in complexity either.
This is where I like to tie everything together, right? Because what you're speaking to is really what libertarians speak about all the time, and that is the value of the free market. And that is when you increase options, you increase the quality, because now the other options have to compete. And we see that. I mean, if I were to say, you have to go and purchase either a Ford or a GMC, and here's the thing, I'm sorry, it's actually going to be voted on by everybody, and whatever one that they vote on, 50+1% majority, that's the car you have to use. And everybody's like, that's insane. And it is insane, because that's not how, not how it should work, but that's not how it works in anything. I mean, we don't expect that, with our movies. We don't expect that with our TV shows. We don't expect that with our cars. We don't expect that with our phones, for crying out loud. So I think it's important for us to then make that jump. And that is to say to people, why would you want that in your voting system? It does breed, unfortunately, just this incestuous swamp that we have in DC right now. I mean, God, Trump, when he was running it in 2016, that's kind of what got him into the White House, was his really explaining to the people that, yes, there is a swamp and we're going to drain it. Now, did he do that? No, he inflated it by like 8 times. But regardless, that was a sentiment that people were resonating with. So to your point, Aaron, I think there is a desire by the people to have this alternative voting system, and with that, change the candidates that we're getting. So with that being said, I wanted to quickly turn the question more towards that of one of strategic voting, right? So my expertise before I went into sales was in political science, and one of the things we talk about is strategic voting theory. And I would love to hear, if you could give me the argument for voting for a third party for either side, right? Because right now I see we have the left and the right who are they're so tribal, and they don't want to at all hear any other side. But I think that there is a merit, right? If we were to objectively look at a third party candidate from a strategic voting standpoint. So could you speak to that, and maybe to the merit of both candidates, to say, hey, time out for a second, really look at the third party candidate and see that you might be able to get more positives than you would otherwise?
So here, are you asking about this in terms of under our current system or under approval voting?
Let's make it under approval voting. How about that?
Okay, under approval voting, boy, it's so much easier. So under our current choose one method,
set that foil.
you may sweat some bullets there. So under approval voting, it's really not an issue. So say you really like Joe Jorgensen, and so you're looking at Biden as well, and you're thinking, I don't know about Biden, or maybe even have second thoughts about Trump. But at the end of the day, you are looking at the candidates and you say, I'm having a tough decision among the front runners, but it is clear to me that Joe Jorgensen is better than every other candidate. Well, under approval voting, you can always support your honest favorite. It will never harm you to support your honest favorite candidate. And so right away, you support Joe Jorgensen, and even other people, maybe other people who maybe don't have Joe Jorgensen as their favorite, but they say maybe they actually like Trump, or they like Biden, but they have a libertarian spirit to them. And they say, what, maybe Joe Jorgensen, maybe she isn't even my favorite, but she's got a lot of ideas that I'd like to see brought to the table. And I'd like to support her as well to make sure that those ideas are heard. So this really has a number of ancillary effects. So here, when you're voting, now you can support your honest favorite. If you want to hedge your bets at the same time, you can vote for Trump, or you can vote for Biden to hedge your bets to make sure you have to make sure you have your say in the outcome, and support Joe Jorgensen at the same time. But even say in the event that Joe Jorgensen doesn't win, even under approval voting, you've done something that plurality voting is incapable of doing. And that is being able to capture the support of non-major party candidates. So approval voting does an excellent job of capturing support for independent candidates and third-party candidates. And we saw this when we did a poll in 2016 as well. So when we did a poll in 2016 comparing Clinton, Trump, Johnson, and Stein, under approval voting, Johnson got 21% approval. And if you remember, in that election, he got 3% under plurality voting. So that is a tremendous jump.
So it shows it works. It's wild. Well, what we need to do then, obviously, is get more people aware of what's happening at the Center for Election Science. And number one, that involves people sharing today's episode. But number two, heading over to the Center for Election Science website. It's electionscience.org. And Aaron, they can find you over on Twitter at Aaron F. Hamlin. Now, with that being said, give us a call to action. Where can folks, I know you guys are accepting donations to help keep pushing things forward. So where can folks go ahead and do that?
Absolutely. You can go to electionscience.org. We have a great donation page. It's also worth mentioning that because of the CARES Act, you can donate up to $300 if you don't do a stock donation for your. So if you don't do itemization, you can do an above the line deduction of up to $300 this year because of the CARES Act. If you make a cash donation. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Otherwise, feel free to donate to your heart's content. So that you can see approval voting implemented in more places. And if you're looking at this and you say, okay, well, I'm excited to donate, but you know what? My excitement does not end there. I really want to make sure that this is implemented in as many places as possible. And I want to be on the front lines to make sure that my voice is heard, that my neighbors' voices are heard, and that the candidates that I care about, that they're able to bring their issues to the table. And you're just not content until that can happen and approval voting is implemented in more places. If that's your attitude, we have a great opportunity for you. So this year we have started up a chapter campaign. So if you go to our website under Take Action and then join the chapter program. So if you go to electionscience.org, go to join the chapter program, and click on that under Take Action, you can join a chapter in your local area. And we have chapters all over the country already. This just started this year, and already we have chapters in Denver. We have them in Portland. We have them in Austin. We have them in Dallas. We have them across the U.S. in major cities. And this is right now we're already hitting these major cities, but in the future, we will go into states. And so this is really an excellent opportunity to get involved to make sure that you don't have to be in a situation where your friends give you crap for voting the way that you see fit, and making sure and just being able to make sure that you're able to have your voice heard and not get crap from your friends and not have second guesses about making sure that that the people that you vote for represent you.
Oh, man. Honestly, that's exactly what we need, because at the end of the day, too, Aaron, I think it's important to recognize that over half of America didn't even vote last election cycle. So that means that, you know what, the people that are voting right now are not actually in the majority. I think the majority of people out there who I dare say are the silent majority are the people who just want a rational human being to be, the head of the country. And gosh, I would say if we had approval voting right now, Dr. Jorgensen would have a hell of a chance. But with that being said, Aaron, thank you so much for joining the Brian Nichols Show. And definitely, I will include the links there in the show notes so people want to get inspired and go and act. They will have the means to do so. That being said, Aaron, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.
Enjoying the audio version of the show? Then you'll love our YouTube channel. Be sure to head over there and subscribe. And if you're new to the Brian Nichols Show, be sure to head to your favorite podcast catcher and click download all unplayed episodes so you don't miss one of our nearly 500 episodes that will be sure to leave you educated, enlightened, and informed. If you got value from today's episode, can you do me a favor and head to briannicholsshow.com/support and leave us a $5 donation? And by the way, have you given the show a 5-star review yet? If not, head to Apple Podcasts and tell folks why you listen to the program, and don't forget to tell your friends to subscribe too. Follow me on social media at @BNicholsLiberty. And again, if you'd be so kind, please consider making a donation to the Brian Nichols Show at briannicholsshow.com/support. The Brian Nichols Show is supported by viewers like you. Thank you to our patrons, Daryl Schmitz, Michael Lima, Mitchell Mankiewicz, Cody Johns, Craig DaCosta, and the We Are Libertarians Network.